All right. So thank you for meeting with me today. I really
You're
appreciate you
welcome.
sitting down and talking with me about Mary's Place and your experience with it. Just to get us started, if you could introduce yourself, tell us your role, your relationship with Mary's Place, and how you got involved with the organization.
My name is Marilyn Leverson, and I volunteered for 5 years with Mary's Place. I started out working at one of the family center shelters in the north end of Seattle, um, mostly working with incoming donations, sorting them, and then getting them into the to the marketplace and the home store. Um, And then when the pandemic hit and they ended up closing down that shelter, and and a lot of volunteer positions. So then I ended up working at the warehouse that in donations. Well, I guess they call it the donation center. I worked at the donation center and kind of did some of the same thing where I sorted donations and then packed orders to get them out to the different sites. And I also worked at the North Shore site, and um, another volunteer and I helped set up the marketplace at Bellevue when they opened. And then I've also done some volunteering at some of the events. So kind of lots of different little things.
Great. Well, do you have a favorite memory of Mary's Place? Maybe a moment or an interaction that stands out to you? It's okay if you have multiple.
Well, I think my very favorite that stuck with me when I was sorting donations was that at the family center, they had a separate home store, and that's where the clients went when they got the keys to their new apartments or houses. And they could go in there and get um, supplies for their houses. They could get blankets and sheets and cooking utensils and pots and pans and just kind of anything that you might need to start a home, especially if you're starting a home with very little. And my favorite times where I think like I would see people come out of there sometimes with the things that we had just put in that we had when we had restocked, and to see people coming out of there with things that they really really needed. And the same with the marketplace also, to know that we had sometimes just see items that we had just put in there and people would be taking them that day. So we knew that things were getting used.
That's great.
So those are my favorites.
Yeah, those are good. Those are good memories. How did you see Mary's Place having an impact in the greater community?
Well, I don't know that I saw direct impact, but one of the things I found really interesting is if you said you volunteered at Mary's Place, people knew what you were talking about. Like that people really know about the work that they do. And many, many, many people know about Marty. Like it is incredible. If you say Mary's Place quite often, they'll say, "Oh, I heard Marty talk at whatever," and they were always really impressed. And I don't think I ever heard any negative things about Mary's Place. It was always people who wanted to know how they could support it.
Yeah, and it's so good to see that positivity in the community around the
Yes,
organization.
yes,
Yeah.
it's very amazing and impressive
Yeah.
that they've
Yeah.
managed to that they've built that over the years.
Mhm. And at your time at Mary's Place, how did you and how have you seen the organization change and grow?
That one's a hard one for me, and I have to admit, I don't know. I don't know that I was in a position to see that. I think what I saw, I think there were more attempts to involve people of color in positions that were where were directly interfacing with clients, which I thought was a really, really good thing. Um,
Yeah.
it felt like there was a lot of training about how to work with clients and to meet their needs. It wasn't just expected that people just kind of figure it out on their own, but it felt like there was a very concerted effort at education for the staff.
Yeah.
But I don't know about, yeah, otherwise I don't know that I can say.
Hmm.
Oh, well, I mean, one of the big changes was with the pandemic. They like so quickly figured out how to meet the client's needs when they no longer, when they had to have more like separate rooms, because some of their sites, their older sites in particular, like the North one, um, almost everybody was staying in a kind of communal living area, with, you know, canvas up in between, and there wasn't as much privacy. And then when the pandemic hit, they moved really quickly to make things happen, whether it was opening, like they opened a couple sites very quickly that were, one was had been a nursing home, and another one had been a hotel. And they just quickly got going on finding spaces like that and utilizing them, setting them up. It was really impressive.
Yeah, just watching them be able to adapt to the
Yes.
unprecedented situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have one event, or if you can't think of an event, maybe like a time period that you know of or that you experienced that you think is particularly important to the history of the organization?
Hmm. I don't really think I can. Yeah, can't think of any particular event.
Hmm. Yeah, was there a time that you saw that maybe the organization was going through a change that impacted like more people, or a lot of people have been talking about like it doesn't have to be like an exact event, but maybe a couple of years in which the organization really grew in their eyes, whether it was like actually physically growing or just developing maybe more internally.
Hmm. I guess I always looked at Mary's Place as a place where they were continually growing. So it's
Hmm.
hard for me to
Yeah.
pick any particular time period,
Hmm.
because it always felt like they were trying to figure out the best ways to do things.
Hmm.
Um, they weren't an organization that was really stuck in well, this is the way we do things for the most
Hmm.
part.
Hmm.
Um, I guess like at one point, um, at the north site, we were really having difficulties with figuring out how to handle the amount of donations that were coming in, getting them sorted, getting them organized. Um, and they called a meeting that included me as a volunteer to try to brainstorm ideas about how to better do things. And I guess I don't think maybe many organizations would involve a volunteer in something like that, because it's their jobs, and they might look at it as, we're the people who make those decisions. But it was really nice to be included in that, because I was the one that was, I and other volunteers were doing a lot of the
Hmm.
work, so we really understood how the pieces fit together. The
Hmm.
people who worked there saw, knew other pieces. But I think that's an example of a time when Mary's Place was really trying to, people at Mary's Place were really trying to figure out how to improve something. But I see that as just a constant for them,
Yeah, for
not
sure.
as, oh, this is a really unusual event. It was more like,
Hmm.
it's just more of the same, trying to figure out how to best meet the needs of
Hmm.
their clients.
Yeah, yeah. And that's also a great answer. It's just that they're like continually growing and continually evolving. It's great. If you have any other memories or short stories, that was my last official question, but if you have any memories or stories that you want to share to be a part of this interview, ones that have particularly touched you, or any ways that you think Mary's Place has really made an impact in your life, you can feel free to share them with me. But yeah, those are my last official
Okay.
questions.
I think personally, one of the things that I was surprised that I retired from teaching, and then I
Mhm.
kind of sort of immediately started volunteering at Mary's Place, and it was a really, really good fit. The thing And I just thought, okay, I'm going to go volunteer, and it'll be nice to volunteer, and it'll be nice to feel like I'm doing something, and all that kind of stuff that many of us retired people feel when we retire. To feel useful, it's a good way to feel useful. The thing I was surprised at was that I made friends. Um, I made new friends both with other volunteers and with some of the employees, and that was a really real surprise to me. I didn't look at it as that was going to be part of my experience, and it was
Hmm.
a wonderful thing. Even though I'm not volunteering there now, I still keep in touch with some of the employees. Some of them, whether um, some of them are not employed there anymore, but I still keep in touch with them, and I keep in touch with an employee who still works there, and um, so it's a wonderful place for that. And even and it goes,
Hmm.
I would say, all the way to the top, that Marty makes volunteers feel like they're an important part of the whole picture, and that she makes a point of like getting to know some of the volunteers. And I guess, oh, here's a thing that a memory I have that just really sticks with me too, is that um, one of the events they had was called Holly Jolly every year, and it was this big event where um, all of the families that were living in the shelters could come in, and Santa would be there, and there'd be lunch, and they could pick out, kids could pick out presents for their parents, and parents could pick out presents for their kids. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful event. And some of the volunteers would go and help set it up beforehand. At that and at other fundraising events, Marty was there. She was there helping to move things around, and she was there like one of the first people to get there. It could be 7 in the morning, and she was there ready to work,
Hmm.
working with us, and as always, looking for, okay, is there something else we could be doing in addition to what we plan to do? And so I would say some of my favorite memories are of Marty, and how willing she was just to always do everything. She wasn't just she definitely wasn't a figurehead.
Hmm.
She
Hmm.
was always there working.
For
And that
sure.
was true I worked at a lot of events, and she was always there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sitting
You're
down with
welcome.
me